So tell us, why are we talking about agentic AI and the future of work right now?
With Agentic, we have the opportunity to actually leapfrog entire processes, entire job functions to be rethought, and go left of processes that today asking ourselves, why do we even work this way?
You have founded one of the first AI first companies and really developing responsibly from day one. So you really lived the future of work because you literally built the future of work.
We're in the early days. The trail maps have not been written, but we do have such strong foundational thinking as organizations of the ethical, responsible, right things to do for humans. And we need to be bold in transferring that into technologies.
Agentic AI is presenting us with an incredible opportunity to change how we work, adding in an automated component into our workplace and our workforce. How do we think about that transition? Perhaps introducing the concept of a chief work officer to shepherd in people and technology into this new way of working. Welcome to the Future of Work, a podcast where we dive into insights and trends into all the ways of working. We are here with Athena Karp, the founder and CEO of HiredScore, and the Senior Vice President of Product Marketing here at Workday. Today, we'll talk about this exact topic. What does it look like for leaders to responsibly usher in this new era of work with agentic AI? Welcome, Athena.
Thanks for having me, Kathy.
So tell us, why are we talking about agentic AI and the future of work right now?
So, since ChatGPT arrived, which we've been through a few years now of technology cycles, and you gave a little bit more about my background, but I've been working in AI for HR specifically for over a decade, 12 years to be exact. And before that, several years of AI in other regulated industries, specifically healthcare. And what's fascinating about the last 2 years is kind of the hunger and the kind of depth of interest we've found our customers have for being able to truly unlock the power of AI, doing things like not just, for many years we had clients requesting, how do we leverage AI to make this process or work within the business process that we've developed today and make it slightly more efficient, slightly more effective. So we were always on the incremental. With Agentic, we have the opportunity to actually leapfrog entire processes, entire job functions to be rethought, what a great function looks like. We have the ability to augment humans and how we can democratize expertise now with agentic capabilities and go left of processes that today asking ourselves, why do we even work this way? And could we detect that which triggers today's reactive, inefficient, ineffective, non beneficial for people process by going negative 3, 6, 9, 12 months from that today? And that's the tremendous opportunity. I know we'll dive into some great examples, but I couldn't be more excited, not just because the technology can do so much more than what it's been deployed to date to be able to do for people and for
Mhm.
companies, but also because leaders have the right mindset, the right willingness, and the right excitement of being able to unlock that which is today only possible.
You talk about going beyond incremental work, about leapfrogging, and we hear a lot of organizations and people talk about AI transforming work, but you, being the thought leader that you are, you take it a step further. You introduce the concept of a chief work officer. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I couldn't be more excited to be announcing Workday's participation in what I believe is truly the most important thing for leaders across companies to be thinking about, which is the technology can do so much. And as we think of today, work is done by humans. Increasingly, it's done by human machine collaboration and agents. And that shift, there are leaders, for example, talking about how this is the last era of managing only humans. And for decades, software and technology has provided the layer for humans to then do all the services. Now we're going to have the benefit of human machine collaboration to get work done. And as I see that chief work officer role, it's really the evolution in many ways, and it's excitingly a collaboration between HR, between CHROs, between CIOs, between chief AI officers of how do we shepherd the workforce through the change of the human machine collaboration? How do we make sure each and every employee is both ready and continually ready as the technology evolves to be a collaborator with these technology tools and this evolution ahead? But also, how do we help the business plan and forecast the most that they can what the work demand they will have is and how that work is continually decompositioning down into human machine collaboration threads? And think of these big questions like, you know, the future of a job, the future timeline of a different job, the future breakdown of a job and a task. We've for so many years talked about, for example, hiring for potential. But without the benefit of agents to democratize expertise and augment people who otherwise lacked the rigid 10 years of relevant experience or 20 years of industry experience that was otherwise required to have you be properly positioned for the work and its demands, none of this was possible. So it's both the business capabilities that are possible to unlock and the planning that is necessary between work supply and work demand, but it's also readying the workforce and continuing to keep them both aligned and aware and abreast of what those changes are and make sure that we are ushering people through that evolution.
Mhm. You've talked a little bit about this already, about what a chief work officer can do. Can you talk more broadly about just the chief work officer mindset? So whether an organization employs or brings in a chief work officer or not, what is the mindset around a chief work officer like in an organization? And what is it solving for?
So, we talk a lot about what's different about AI, and there's a lot that's different about AI. But I think that in a lot of places, we talk about AI being different or this time or this moment in time being different, but it's actually familiar to things we've seen in the past, which is great news. So, a great example is if we go to COVID, so many of our clients, especially CHROs, they talk about, having a critical seat at the table and being so deeply connected to the business that they could anticipate and have the instincts of exactly what was coming. HR gained an agility in COVID that was never possible before. I remember one of my leaders said, if it used to take us 6 to 12 months to discuss revisiting an HR policy, like work from home, in COVID, we had 72 hours to evaluate, redefine, document, release, and educate all in less than a week. An entirely new way of working across the organization, and HR has kept that agility. Most of the CHROs I know love and thrive in an environment where they maintain that seat at the table, they maintain that agility, but it's often very reactive agility, responding to changes as they come versus the proactive leadership that most of the CHRs we know would love. And I think that collaboration and connection with CIOs, CTOs, again, it's no different in COVID. If you have to move your entire workforce to remote overnight when you've never had that before, absolutely, it was a collaboration between technology, the business, and HR. And kind of what excites me is this is very similar in that change, right? But it's going to require that agility, that so closely connected to the business, you can anticipate their needs, that deep, seamless connection with CIOs, with CTOs, with chief AI officers in being able to understand what versions of AI are coming down the pipe? What agents have we deployed across the business? And what evaluation criteria are we using? What cost to quality metrics are being deployed? How are we measuring performance of the human machine collaboration? And HR is in the center of that today, right? So every employee that is performing, that is functioning across the org, how we're paying them, how we're equipping them to know what's coming ahead and be ready for their jobs as it changes. It's just the added layer of the human machine collaboration those organizations that win won't be the ones that wait for your competition to figure out, for example, how they successfully leveraged agents in customer success to provide a transformed customer experience, and then your org fast followed the competition. No, it's going to be those that boldly take the business objectives and business priorities, figure out and experiment across that human machine collaboration, and bring that to life in the most successful ways for their current workforce to be experts in that collaboration.
Every time I hear you talk about HR and the role of the chief HR officer and just work in general, I learn something new. And that's such a fascinating trace of going from the agility of the HR office during COVID through think about being proactive to this moment that we're in with AI and agents. You brought up the CHRO, the chief HR officer, and you brought up a few other roles as well. How do you see this concept of a chief work officer interacting with the chief HR officer and the CIO and the chief AI officer and the chief responsible AI officer and all these different roles that organizations have? How does this role fit into that?
I mean, it is more important than ever that we have that depth of connection and depth of collaboration, because to successfully bring agents to an organization, right? To successfully have that human machine collaboration, we need a number of different factors. We need one, organizations will need one, and Workday is here to help, which is the great news, because we're really at the frontier of this. And across our 11,000 customers, we get to thankfully work with some of the most innovative companies in the world and the greatest leaders in the world that are already exploring this, that are already bringing this to life, that are already preparing their workforces at scale, which is not a check the box exercise, but it's going to be a very iterative, continual process. And so I think where COVID was a catalytic one time event, it was in many ways, though, the training grounds for this being kind of a very different reality than anything we've experienced, but this is gonna be continual. And the great news is we have the time right now to prepare and get ahead of it and build all the plans and start thinking about how to make sure each and every employee in the organization has the opportunity to successfully collaborate, and whatever that human machine collaboration means in their work, to be ready for what that means and continue to be ready as that changes over time. The question you asked of that cross C-suite collaboration and how fundamental it is, because this is not just about technology and humans. It's also, as you mentioned, about the chief responsible AI officer or chief ethics, or whoever is playing that role at your company to make sure safety and responsibility is front and center. We need them more than ever, right? We need them to be thinking about angles of this problem that haven't been thought before, because we've not experienced what human machine collaboration means in the workforce. We need them to be thinking about populations who might not have the same advantages in being successful in this human machine collaboration. And we need them to also be thinking about the same standards that they've always held to humans and in the physical world, translating that into the digital world and defining what that means for agentic, so that we're also testing and governing and auditing these technologies in very similar ways.
Yeah.
The role of a chief legal officer is thrilling to me, because we need them more than ever to take what they know so deeply, which is governance, and bring that into technology as well and translate that across human machine collaboration. So there's no role you mentioned where I don't see them as kind of the superstars on this stage with capes and spotlights, shining how important their role is. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways here, which is this cannot and should not be a CHRO torch only. We need every single executive, which, I went to Davos with Team Workday earlier this year, and it was amazing how widespread the C suite was thinking about what AI will mean for their organizations, what it will mean for their human capital, and what it will mean for their customers. And yet, I think we have a tremendous opportunity to really help share the knowledge across what all of our clients are doing across the thousands of clients iterating on this problem, share learnings very quickly, share best practices, share mistakes made also, so that we can help everyone have the highest likelihood of success in their role in this chief work
Mhm.
officer movement.
Yeah, cheers to bringing so many angles to solving the problem and understanding the space. That concept speaks after my own heart and how I think about problems as well. In the topic area now of readiness and think about the future of our employees and how to get our organizations ready. This concept of a chief work officer came about when you thought about really having what's missing a readiness ramp for AI. How do you see the solving for that? And what do you how do you see how do you think about what organizations might be missing and what they're seeing ahead?
I think we're in the very early days of companies writing the map and writing the kind of trail guide in many ways of what's the checklist of readiness. I think the notion that we have checklists for technologies, and we'll just double down on those for AI, especially agentic, almost overlooks in many ways what is different about AI, what is powerful about AI. I think when we go to this notion of being able to democratize expertise, which is one of the things being able to transform how people learn and how we transfer knowledge from those that are experts, those that have done it a long time, to those that have less experience or have never been given the opportunity to do that before. I think we get into a lot of these really important questions. A great example of one of the things you're mentioning is there's a recent study from University of Pennsylvania from Hamza Sarti about can generative AI cause harm? And it's studying the use of generative AI in classrooms.
Hmm.
And it's really about the ways we design these AI and agentic tools, if intentionally designed to transfer knowledge between the machine and the human using it, you will have the success of that person, not just being told, click this button, do this thing, but they'll be explained as they go in why it's recommending that. What was the logic behind that? I think we've talked for many years in AI about explainability, and there are a number of checklists on explainability and auditability, but this goes a few steps further in saying, how do we also think, because it is a human machine collaboration, not just about human in the loop, and saying we don't want the system, even if it could, taking this decision, or we don't have the confidence levels for it to take that decision and baking that in, but also in thinking about things like responsible AI product design means how do you teach the different personas leveraging it, what it knows and why it knows that, so that they can carry that knowledge forward and then go advance into their careers. So I think we're in the early days. The trail maps have not been written, but we do have such strong foundational thinking as organizations of the ethical, responsible, right things to do for humans. And we need to be bold in transferring that into technologies.
Yeah, I really want to repeat that, but the trail map has not been drawn, has not been written. I'm excited to build that with you and others, and and that really opens it up for we don't know what some of the future looks like, and we have to explore and try. And so, from your perspective, as we're drawing out and writing and making this new trail map, what does leadership look like in the future of work? You know, we know what leadership looks like and the kinds of roles that we're familiar with, and perhaps that might change completely. What does leadership look like in the future?
Again, I don't think it's different than anything we've seen before, which is the good news, is embracing the agility, the opportunity to be proactive, the technology change and shifts, and how do you lead people through things they've never seen before is a question the best leaders I know have had examples and take pride in being able to do. And this is no different. Just because we've not seen agents in the way that we are increasingly seeing agents across work doesn't mean it's different from leadership challenges of helping navigate people through the unknown, helping navigate people through the unexpected, helping navigate people through rapid change. So I would encourage here, let's go back to that path called, where is it not different than what we've seen in the past? And when you look at the best leaders, they don't wait to see what other leaders around them are doing. They take a situation, they represent their employees, their citizens, their customers, their communities in what they think is the best possible ethical framework, responsible framework. Their moral compass shines and they make very quick decisions on what is the best thing to do. And I think we're going to see more and more leaders that practice those type of leadership skill sets are going to be the ones that are the most critical and the most necessary in the changes ahead. I also am extremely excited and optimistic about the ability for AI to help leaders lead in ways that was never possible before. Today, we have to continually go to reports, to analytics, to read data sets, to know what the right report means, to know how to translate that, to have our teams know that. And very soon, and we are increasingly moving to the proactive agentic layers are able to read that data, read the situation, surface and proactively detect there is something that someone needs to know right now. I don't know what they'll do about it, but there is an increasingly not good situation. And how do I bring that to them immediately? And I think that's going to help leaders have a proactiveness that was never possible before that doesn't require tremendous amounts of work to get there.
Let's wrap up with insights you want to leave for our listeners. You have founded a decade ago one of the first AI first companies, seeped in HR and work and talent and people and really developing responsibly from day one. So that was built into your product. And so you really lived the future of work because you literally built the future of work. And now we're living through another huge transition with agentic AI and chief work officers and a new era of how we work. What would you like to leave with leaders who are navigating this space right now?
So, one thing I'll say, we didn't build the future of work. We listened to our clients who gave us the most important problems that they needed us to help them solve. We didn't sit there and have all the ideas. They actually brought us the ideas, and then we worked together on the solution. So all the credit can and should go to the extraordinary leaders we've gotten to partner with over the last 12 years, and even becoming part of Workday, welcoming hundreds of new customers and getting to hear their bold visions for what change looks like, their challenges that they don't have solutions for that they want us to work with them on. I couldn't be more excited when I look at all that is possible. I think the takeaway for me over the last decade was for I think the number is over 80%, around 88% of our clients, we were the first AI first product for them to bring into HR. And many of them say, we weren't looking for an AI solution. We were looking for solutions to hard problems that mattered, that were our highest priority problems. How do we fill jobs more quickly with the best candidates in the fairest way? How do we make it easier to find a job internally than externally and do justice to our commitment to our employees that we will grow you aligned with your career aspirations and maximizing your potential? How do we help managers and position managers to be great managers of people because they are managers here at our firm? So when you think of all these challenges that were raised to us, I would just when I think of this next generation and era ahead, it's not about the technology. It's about picking the most important business problems. It's about deeply understanding what solving those problems will start to look like. And it's about welcoming us as Workday and your other technology innovation partners into that tent of help us think about this. What's driven the best collaboration is the earliest we can know what you know is coming 2 to 3 years down from the executives, from the board, from the industry, and you don't have the answers to. When you come to us, that's when we have the highest possible runway to be able to be solution providers and collaborators together, and things like responsible AI. How do we build that in from day zero of what we're designing? It's native for us, it's native for many of our clients to think like that. But when we collaborate on the problems and you bring us in as early as possible, then we're able to have these solutions that win for everyone. So I'm really excited for what's ahead. And thank you so much, Kathy, for hosting me. You are my inspiration and role model as we think about what charting the future of work looks like together, and how do we help the industry and share the incredible knowledge of what we get to be exposed to for everyone to be able to learn and benefit from.
Thank you so much, Athena. And to all of you listening and watching, if you want to explore more tactical practices and advice and insights from experts and leaders, my colleagues like Athena, check out our Workday AI Masterclass, where you'll find how to bring AI into your organizations at all stages. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.